July 17th, 1986, 5:42 a.m. The sun had barely begun to illuminate the dusty Nevada landscape when Robert Richardson, a 42-year-old mechanical engineer, and his son Tyler, just 8 years old, left their rental cabin near Rachel, Nevada. Their intended destination, a viewing point approximately 12 miles east of the perimeter of what was then officially called the Nevada Test and Training Range, unofficially known to locals and conspiracy theorists as Area 51. Robert was a practical man with an impeccable service record from his time in the Air Force. Colleagues described him as methodical and skeptical by nature. He had recently accepted a position at Boeing in Seattle and had decided to take his son on a father-son camping trip through the Southwest before relocating from their home in Phoenix, Arizona. According to Linda Richardson, Robert's wife, this trip was meant to be educational. Robert wanted to show Tyler the stars in one of the least light-polluted areas of the continental United States. Robert was not a UFO enthusiast. Linda would later tell investigators. He was interested in astronomy and wanted to share that with Tyler. The proximity to Area 51 was coincidental. He had chosen the location strictly for its clear night skies. The Richardsons' blue 1984 Ford Bronco was found abandoned later that same day, 18 miles east of their cabin, parked neatly on the shoulder of a rarely used service road. The vehicle was unlocked, keys in the ignition. Inside, investigators found Tyler's backpack containing a child's telescope, a Mars candy bar, and a small journal. Robert's camera was on the passenger seat, the film partially used. Their overnight bags remained in the back, apparently untouched. What first seemed like a routine search and rescue operation would soon become one of the most perplexing missing persons cases in Nevada history. And what investigators found, or rather didn't find, around the Bronco would raise questions that remain unanswered to this day. The initial search operation was launched within hours of the discovery of the abandoned vehicle. The Lincoln County Sheriff's Department coordinated with Nevada State Police and local volunteer search and rescue teams. Standard protocol was followed. Ground teams with tracking dogs covered a 5-mile radius from the Bronco, while helicopter surveillance extended the search area to 20 miles. Sheriff Emmett Parker, who headed the operation, noted several immediate irregularities. There were no footprints leading away from the vehicle despite the dusty terrain. It had rained lightly 2 days prior, but the ground was dry and should have captured footprints. It was as if they vanished directly from the vehicle. The tracking dogs exhibited unusual behavior. According to K-9 handler Sergeant James Collins, the dogs would track scents to approximately 20 feet from the Bronco, then become disoriented, walking in tight circles and whining. In my 14 years working with search and rescue dogs, I've never seen this behavior pattern, Collins noted in his official report. It was as if the scent trail simply terminated abruptly. The initial investigation focused on more conventional explanations. Authorities questioned whether the pair might have been victims of a carjacking gone wrong, but the presence of the vehicle and all their possessions contradicted this theory. The possibility that they had been picked up by another vehicle was considered, but tire tracks analysis showed no evidence of another vehicle stopping nearby. Linda Richardson arrived from Phoenix on July 18th and established a base at the Rachel Sheriff's substation. She provided detailed information about her husband and son, including medical history and identifying features. Tyler had a distinctive birthmark on his right shoulder blade, shaped roughly like the state of Florida. Robert had a 4-inch surgical scar on his left knee from a college basketball injury. As the days passed without any sign of the missing pair, investigators expanded their efforts. The FBI was brought in on day 4, standard procedure for missing persons cases involving a minor. Agent Dana Holloway was assigned as the lead federal investigator. Our initial assessment was that this was either a voluntary disappearance, though Mrs. Richardson adamantly rejected this possibility, or foul play, Agent Holloway would later explain. But both scenarios left too many unanswered questions. By the end of the first week, the investigation had gathered several puzzling pieces of evidence. The most significant was the film recovered from Robert's camera. When developed, the photographs showed typical tourist shots: Tyler posing next to desert flora, panoramic landscapes, and several night sky images showing impressive star fields. However, the final 3 photographs on the roll were different. Taken approximately 30 minutes before sunrise on the morning of their disappearance, according to the camera's timestamp feature, They showed what appeared to be unusual atmospheric phenomena. The first captured a bright light hovering over a distant ridge. The second, taken moments later according to the timestamp, showed the same light seemingly closer and larger. The third image was mostly overexposed, with just the edge of what might have been the same light phenomenon visible at the frame's edge. Photography experts from the FBI lab in Quantico examined the negatives and confirmed they had not been tampered with or double exposed. The phenomenon could not be immediately explained as lens flare, aircraft lights, or other known atmospheric effects. Another significant discovery came from Robert's journal, found in the glove compartment of the Bronco. His final entry, dated July 16th, the night before their disappearance, read, "Tyler spotted something interesting in the northeastern sky around 10:30 p.m., probably high-altitude military aircraft, despite what the locals might claim. We'll try to get a better look tomorrow morning before we head back to Phoenix. Tyler is convinced it's a UFO. The imagination of an 8-year-old is something to behold." This entry suggested the pair had intentionally gone to observe something they had spotted the previous night. It also indicated they had planned to return to Phoenix that day, not extend their trip or leave the area permanently. Linda Richardson maintained a constant presence at the Search Command Center. Robert would never leave voluntarily. She insisted in multiple interviews. He was excited about his new job. We had already put a deposit down on a house in Seattle. And he would never, ever abandon Tyler. Anyone who knew him would tell you the same. As the search continued into its second week, authorities noted another unusual aspect of the case: the complete absence of cellular disruption. Robert's phone, recovered from the vehicle, showed no calls after 8:30 p.m. the night before they vanished. Yet the battery was still at nearly full charge, unusual for a device left unused for over a week. The investigation was about to take an unexpected turn when a local rancher named Frank Miller came forward with testimony that would dramatically alter the course of the search. But before we reveal what Miller witnessed on that July morning, if you're following this case closely, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. You won't want to miss the shocking revelations we're about to uncover in the Richardson disappearance. Miller, a 68-year-old who had ranched in the area since the 1950s, reported that he had been checking fence lines approximately 3 miles from where the Richardsons' Bronco was found. At approximately 5:55 a.m. on July 17th, he observed what he initially thought was a military exercise. "I saw a bright white light drop from the sky, hover maybe 100 feet above the ground for about 30 seconds, then shoot off horizontally at a speed no aircraft I know could achieve," Miller stated in his official testimony. "I didn't think much of it. We see all kinds of strange military testing out here, until I heard about the missing father and son." Miller's testimony was initially dismissed by investigators as unrelated, particularly given the proximity to a known military testing area. However, when the coordinates of his sighting were mapped against the location of the abandoned Bronco, they were less than 2 miles apart. Further validation came when meteorologists confirmed that unusual electromagnetic readings had been recorded by weather stations in the area between 5:50 and 6:05 a.m. on July 17th. The anomalies were initially attributed to equipment malfunction, but in light of Miller's testimony, were reconsidered as potentially relevant. The FBI expanded the investigation to include interviews with personnel at Nellis Air Force Base, which oversees the Nevada Test and Training Range. Official statements confirmed no scheduled aircraft or drone testing in the specified area during that time frame. However, former personnel would later claim anonymously that all records from that morning had been subject to unusual scrutiny by officials they didn't recognize. Agent Holloway documented in her case notes, "While we cannot give credence to extraterrestrial hypotheses without concrete evidence, we must acknowledge that conventional explanations are proving inadequate to explain the totality of circumstances surrounding this disappearance." The search area was expanded based on Miller's testimony, incorporating sophisticated ground-penetrating radar and thermal imaging technology. The Air Force officially denied any involvement, but provided helicopter support for the expanded search operation, a move some saw as an attempt to control what information might be discovered. As the investigation entered its third week, the focus shifted from an active search to a detailed forensic analysis of the evidence already gathered. The Bronco was transported to an FBI facility for comprehensive examination. Investigators discovered several anomalies that further complicated the case. Microscopic examination of the vehicle's exterior revealed unusual patterns of dust distribution, According to forensic analyst Dr. Karen Wu, the dust pattern suggests the vehicle was subjected to a powerful downdraft from above, strong enough to clear dust from the roof but not displace the vehicle itself. This finding aligned with Miller's description of a hovering light. More puzzling was the discovery made by electromagnetic field specialists. Using sophisticated equipment, they detected residual electromagnetic anomalies throughout the vehicle's electrical system. The Bronco's battery showed signs of complete discharge followed by spontaneous recharging, a phenomenon electrical engineers deemed technically inexplicable. The most compelling evidence came from an analysis of soil samples collected in a 50-foot radius around where the vehicle had been parked. Dr. Michael Harmon, a geologist with the U.S. Geological Survey, identified crystalline structures in the soil that had been subjected to extreme heat, estimated at over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Yet there were no scorch marks or other visible signs of such heat exposure on the ground. These crystalline formations typically require sustained high temperatures to form, Dr. Harmon explained, but the surrounding organic material shows no evidence of burning. It's as if the heat was extremely focused and momentary, affecting only the silicon components in the soil. Analysis of the Richardsons' personal effects yielded another strange discovery. Both Robert's wristwatch and the dashboard clock in the Bronco had stopped at exactly 5:58 a.m., despite having different mechanisms. Watch expert Theodore Sills determined that the mainspring in Robert's Analog Omega had not wound down but had stopped suddenly, as if subjected to a strong electromagnetic pulse. The FBI interviewed all military and civilian pilots who had been airborne within a 100-mile radius during the critical time frame. None reported unusual sightings or atmospheric disturbances, though 2 commercial pilots noted temporary instrument malfunctions while passing over the general area around 6 a.m. Agent Holloway's case notes from this period reflect growing frustration. 3 weeks in, we have mounting evidence of something highly unusual occurring at the time and place of the Richardsons' disappearance, yet we're no closer to determining their whereabouts. Conventional investigation methods are proving inadequate for this case. The investigation took another unexpected turn in early August 1986, when 3 witnesses came forward independently, each claiming to have observed unusual phenomena in the area around the time of the Richardsons' disappearance. Janet Reeves, a long-haul trucker passing through Nevada on Interstate 93, reported seeing an intensely bright column of light approximately 20 miles east of her position, which would place it near the location where the Bronco was found. Her CB radio experienced significant interference simultaneously, and her truck's electrical system momentarily faltered before resuming normal function. Donald and Margaret Collins, amateur astronomers camping about 15 miles south of Rachel, reported observing what they initially thought was a meteor at approximately 5:50 a.m. But instead of continuing its trajectory, Donald explained, it stopped mid-air, hovered for maybe 15-20 seconds, then changed direction horizontally before accelerating at an impossible rate. The couple had documented the sighting in their astronomy log but hadn't connected it to the disappearance until seeing a news report. Perhaps most significantly, Air Force Technical Sergeant Walter Davis came forward, unofficially and requesting anonymity at the time, stating that radar installations at Nellis had tracked an uncorrelated target, moving at extraordinary speeds over the restricted airspace adjacent to the Richardson disappearance location. According to Davis, the object demonstrated capabilities far beyond any known aircraft, including instant acceleration and 90-degree directional changes without deceleration. Whatever was tracked that morning violated the laws of physics as we understand them, Davis would later state after his retirement. The data was confiscated, and those of us who saw it were debriefed extensively and reminded of our security clearances. The Air Force officially denied Davis's claims and maintained that no unusual activity had been detected that morning. However, through Freedom of Information Act requests filed years later, researchers obtained heavily redacted documents confirming that anomalous radar returns had indeed been recorded and were subject to a specialized security protocol. FBI investigators attempted to correlate these witness accounts with their existing timeline. The consistency between the independently reported sightings, particularly the times and described phenomena, added credibility to what might otherwise have been dismissed as coincidental or unreliable testimony. Agent Holloway documented in her case files, while extraterrestrial involvement remains speculative at best, we must consider the possibility that the Richardsons encountered something experimental, potentially military in origin, that resulted in either their accidental deaths or their deliberate removal by persons unknown. By September 1986, the active investigation had been scaled back significantly. Linda Richardson refused to accept that her husband and son might never be found. She established the Richardson Search Foundation, dedicating herself to continuing the search and investigating similar disappearances in the region. Linda's persistence would eventually uncover a pattern that investigators had missed. Between 1975 and 1986, 7 other individuals had gone missing within a 50-mile radius of the Richardson disappearance site. While none of these cases had the same profile of evidence as the Richardson case, all shared certain characteristics. They occurred in remote locations. The missing persons were traveling in pairs, and in each case, personal belongings were left behind in vehicles or campsites. Dr. James Forrester, a statistical analyst who volunteered with the Richardson Search Foundation, determined that the cluster of disappearances represented a significant statistical anomaly. The probability of this many missing persons cases with similar characteristics occurring in such a sparsely populated region by random chance is extremely low, Forrester concluded in his analysis. The Foundation's work attracted the attention of Dr. Ellen Marks, a physicist specializing in theoretical wormhole research at Caltech. After reviewing the electromagnetic data from the Richardson case, Dr. Marks proposed a hypothesis that, while speculative, attempted to explain the unusual evidence within the framework of known physics. The electromagnetic anomalies combined with the crystalline formations in the soil and the abrupt termination of scent trails are consistent with what we might expect to observe at the boundary of a temporary space-time distortion, Dr. Marks theorized. While current technology cannot create such distortions, we cannot rule out the possibility that advanced experimental aircraft or weapon systems might generate such effects as a byproduct. The Air Force maintained that no such technology existed in their arsenal, but declassified documents from the period reveal that the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, which would not become publicly known until decades later, was actively investigating similar phenomena during this exact time frame. Former Pentagon analyst Dr. Richard Haynes, who would later found the National Aviation Reporting Center on Anomalous Phenomena, reviewed the Richardson case files in 1992 and noted, "The evidence in this case bears striking similarities to other incidents where aircraft have encountered unexplained aerial phenomena. The electromagnetic effects in particular are consistent with close proximity to technology operating on principles beyond conventional propulsion systems." As the first anniversary of the disappearance approached, Linda Richardson faced increasing pressure to declare her husband and son legally dead. She steadfastly refused. "Without bodies, without concrete evidence of what happened to them, I cannot and will not give up hope," she stated at a press conference marking the anniversary. The Richardson case remained in limbo for nearly a decade. While never officially closed, it became what investigators call a cold file, periodically reviewed but with no active leads to pursue. Linda Richardson continued her advocacy through the Foundation, which had expanded its focus to include all unexplained disappearances in the American Southwest. Then, on June 12, 1996, almost exactly 10 years after the disappearance, a discovery was made that would reignite the investigation. Kevin Montoya, a graduate student in geology from UNLV, was conducting soil sampling approximately 12 miles from where the Richardson Bronco had been found a decade earlier. In a dry washbed that would only fill during rare flash floods, Montoya uncovered what appeared to be a child's toy, a small model car, about 4 inches long. Initially dismissing it as litter, Montoya nevertheless collected the item as his research included cataloging human impact on remote desert environments. Upon closer examination at his lab, he noticed unusual markings etched into the underside of the toy car. The patterns resembled no language or symbol system he recognized. More curiously, spectrographic analysis indicated the toy was made of standard die-cast metal, but the etched symbols contained traces of an unidentifiable metallic compound. When Montoya published his findings in a departmental journal, a colleague made the connection to the Richardson case and contacted the FBI. The toy car was positively identified by Linda Richardson as belonging to Tyler, a cherished Hot Wheels Corvette that Robert had given him for his birthday 3 months before their disappearance. Tyler took that car everywhere, Linda confirmed. But these markings were definitely not on it when they left for their trip. Tyler would have shown me something like that. He showed me everything. The FBI reopened the case and subjected the toy to comprehensive forensic analysis. The results were bewildering. The etchings had been made with a tool that left no detectable tool marks, consistent with laser engraving, but at a microscopic precision beyond commercial technology, available even in 1996, let alone 1986. More inexplicably, radiometric dating of trace organic materials found embedded in the toy's wheel wells indicated they had been deposited recently, within 6 months of the toy's discovery. This suggested the toy had not been lying in the desert for 10 years, but had been placed there much more recently. Agent Samuel Drake, who took over the case from the now retired Agent Holloway, documented, "We're faced with 3 possibilities, none of which offer comfortable explanations. Either the toy was planted recently by someone with knowledge of the case, Tyler Richardson somehow survived and returned to place it himself, or the object has been somewhere outside our normal time frame and was only recently redeposited." The discovery of Tyler's toy car with its inexplicable markings prompted a renewed search effort in summer 1996. Using advanced ground-penetrating radar not available during the original investigation, search teams methodically covered a 5-mile radius from where the toy was discovered. On July 24, 1996, the search team made a discovery that defied conventional explanation. In an area previously searched multiple times in 1986, they found what appeared to be a perfect circle of altered vegetation, approximately 80 feet in diameter. Within this circle, plant life that should have been identical to the surrounding desert flora showed accelerated growth and unusual cellular structures. Dr. Catherine Jenkins, a botanist from the University of Arizona called in to examine the site, determined that the plants within the circle showed genetic mutations consistent with exposure to high levels of radiation, yet Geiger counters detected no current radioactivity in the area. It's as if these plants were exposed to an intense burst of radiation at some point in the past, and the effects were written into their DNA, Dr. Jenkins explained. But the most puzzling aspect is that some of these mutations appear to have occurred recently, within the past year, despite evidence that this growth circle has existed for much longer. At the center of the circle, searchers discovered a small depression containing crystallized soil similar to that found around the Bronco in 1986. Embedded within this crystalline formation was a man's wedding ring, later identified by Linda Richardson as belonging to Robert. Metallurgical analysis of the ring revealed another anomaly. The gold band showed evidence of molecular restructuring that, according to Dr. Terrence Wade of MIT's Materials Science Department, could only occur under conditions of extreme heat combined with gravitational forces far beyond anything naturally occurring on Earth's surface. Most startling were the microscopic markings found inside the band, identical in pattern to those discovered on Tyler's toy car. When the symbols were analyzed by linguists and cryptographers, they could find no match to any known human writing system. Dr. Eliza Henschel, a theoretical physicist consulting on the case, proposed that the markings might represent not language, but mathematical expressions. When interpreted as equations rather than words, these symbols appear to describe 4-dimensional coordinates, essentially points in both space and time. If Dr. Henschel's interpretation was correct, the coordinates specified a location approximately 40 light-years from Earth, in the vicinity of the star system HD 164595, coincidentally or not, a star that had already drawn attention in the scientific community for unusual radio emissions detected by the Ratan 600 radio telescope. By this point, the investigation had split into 2 distinct paths. The FBI continued pursuing conventional explanations, including the possibility that the evidence had been elaborately planted to create the impression of something beyond terrestrial origin. Meanwhile, a specialized multi-agency task force examined the possibility that the Richardsons had encountered something genuinely beyond conventional understanding. The final piece of the Richardson puzzle emerged in December 1996, when a package arrived at Linda Richardson's home. It contained a single Polaroid photograph showing what appeared to be Tyler Richardson, or someone who looked remarkably like him, standing next to what could only be described as a technical diagram of an unconventional aircraft. The boy in the image appeared to be approximately 18 years old, exactly the age Tyler would have been in 1996. The postmark indicated the package had been mailed from Albuquerque, New Mexico. But extensive investigation revealed no trace of who had sent it. Forensic analysis confirmed the photograph was genuine and had not been doctored or manipulated, though the paper stock and chemical composition indicated it had been produced using materials not commercially available. On the back of the photograph was a handwritten message: "Mom, we are safe but elsewhere. The rules are different here. Remember the stars." Handwriting analysis provided high confidence that the writing matched samples of Robert Richardson's handwriting from before the disappearance. When Linda Richardson was shown the photograph and message, her response was documented by Agent Drake. She displayed none of the shock one would expect. Instead, she smiled and said, "I've always known they were still alive somewhere. Now I have proof." Further analysis of the Polaroid revealed additional anomalies. Microscopic examination identified particulate matter embedded in the photograph's emulsion layer, dust with a mineral composition that matched no known geological formation on Earth. Spectroscopic analysis detected trace isotopes with decay patterns suggesting exposure to radiation types not naturally occurring in our atmosphere. Even more compelling was the discovery made by Dr. Sarah Whitman, an astronomer at the Keck Observatory. The star pattern visible in a small window behind Tyler in the photograph depicted a stellar arrangement that would only be visible from a position approximately 40 light-years from Earth, precisely matching the coordinates encoded in the symbols found on the recovered items. The Richardson case remains officially classified as unsolved by the FBI. The evidence, the abandoned vehicle, the electromagnetic anomalies, the discovered items with their impossible markings, and finally the photograph, collectively present a scenario that defies conventional explanation. In 2012, previously classified documents revealed that in the weeks following the Richardson disappearance, NASA had detected an unusual radio signal emanating from the vicinity of HD 164595. The signal lasted for 12 minutes and contained a mathematical sequence that some researchers have claimed matches the symbols found on Tyler's toy car and Robert's wedding ring. Linda Richardson passed away in 2018, never having officially declared her husband and son deceased. In her final interview, she stated, "I don't know exactly what happened that morning in 1986, but I believe Robert and Tyler encountered something beyond our world. I believe they're still out there somewhere together, perhaps trying to find their way home." Whether the Richardson case represents evidence of extraterrestrial contact, secret military technology, or some other explanation entirely, one thing remains certain. The disappearance of Robert and Tyler Richardson continues to challenge our understanding of what is possible and what might exist beyond the boundaries of our knowledge. Thank you for following this incredible case to its conclusion. What do you think happened to Robert and Tyler Richardson? Do you believe they encountered something truly not of this world? Or is there another explanation? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to catch our next unexplained disappearance. The truth is out there, and together, we're going to find it.